So as we get closer to wrapping up this video series on the nature of mind, in this episode, I want to bring it all together and give you an overall perspective, so to speak, of what the mind is. And I want to do that by using a very powerful metaphor that I've spoken about before, and that is the metaphor of the dream. Because the dream analogy or the dream metaphor is very powerful in explaining once and for all what exactly this mind is that I'm talking about, this larger mind versus your personal mind and my personal minds. So, using the dream metaphor, imagine that you're asleep in bed and having a dream. You are now in this dream environment. You don't realize it's a dream. You're so caught up in the story of this dream. And let's say in this dream you are playing the role of a scientist or a physicist. And it is your job to explore this world. And so you do your job, you go exploring, trying to understand what the world is. Of course, you're still in the dream. You don't realize it's a dream. Your mind has deceived itself. It's forgotten that it's asleep in bed and having this dream. And so you're exploring this world. You're using powerful microscopes to dive deep in trying to understand what the stuff is that the world is made up of. And you find systems within systems. You find cells made up of molecules, which are made up of atoms. And these are made up of subatomic particles like protons and electrons and neutrons. And you go telling the world about it. You publish papers and you give lectures and you talk about all the stuff that you found that the world is made up of. And you say that these are the building blocks of the universe, of the world, of life. And then you wake up from the dream and you realize, yeah, you could perceive these things called cells and molecules and atoms, but these were just representations. It was the user interface that you were looking at, right? Of an underlying, deeper reality that you were not aware of. And what was that deeper reality? It was the activity of a mind. The dreamer's mind in this case, or your mind. So what you were perceiving in the dream as atoms and molecules and cells and subatomic particles and talking about this stuff, it was all the activity of a mind, the dreamer's mind, which was presenting itself as atoms and molecules and cells and the dream world, where there were people and trees and the dream elements and the dream story. All of that was mind. And whose mind was it? Well, as the dream avatar, you had your own personal mind, right? But then there was the world outside that you were perceiving, that you were investigating. But ultimately, it's only upon waking up that you realize both the dream avatar with its own personal mind, as well as the outside, what the avatar was perceiving. The entire dream was made up of mind, in this case, the dreamer's mind, which you can regard as the larger mind. Now step back into reality right now as you're watching this video. Look around you. You perceive a physical environment. And scientists are telling you that this physical environment is made up of atoms and molecules and cells and hard physical matter. It certainly feels real. And you have to take this world seriously, right? It certainly is physical. And if you're not careful, it can hurt you. You can experience terrible pain and suffering if you're not careful and you don't take this world seriously. But ultimately, even that is made up of a larger transpersonal mind. Or I should say, it is the activity of a larger transpersonal mind. Now, I'm not saying that this larger mind is asleep somewhere in bed and is having this dream that we call the real world. Right? This world is just a representation. It's a user interface that you can interact with. But what is bringing about this very convincing physical world? It's the underlying activity that you are not aware of. Physical matter, as you see it, is just representation. It's just a map or a model. The territory, in this case, is mind, the larger mind. Just as the activity of your mind when you're asleep in bed is represented as a dream. So, if you're talking about how creative mind is, well, it doesn't get more creative than a dream, right? You're asleep in bed and your mind has created this incredible dream landscape that has fooled you completely, deceived you. If you're talking about mind's ability to self-deceive itself whilst being creative, it doesn't get more powerful than this. Mind is so creative that it can fool itself into believing something, believing a narrative or a story, going along with what we call the physical world, and forgetting that what you call the physical is simply a representation, a symbolic representation. It's a map or a model of an underlying mental activity. All of physical reality is mentation. It's mental activity presenting itself as the world, as creation. And who am I? Who are you? Who is all 8.5 billion people on the planet, as well as animals? These are all dissociated alters, dissociated minds that are sourced from the one larger mind. And these dissociated minds need to be represented, right? Just as physical reality is a representation of the activity of that mind, so are you and me. We are dissociated alters, dissociated representations of that one larger mind. That's what the brain and nervous system is. Whirlpools within the larger stream of mind. If you go back to the episode I released on the brain. So look deeply, look carefully at your own dreams. It gives you a hint as to what's happening in the real world. I'm not saying that this reality is a dream. It is certainly very real. It's nothing like a dream. Dreams are very unpredictable. Things can go sideways pretty quickly in a dream. But in reality, things are very organized, very structured. But it is still the activity, the underlying activity, which is presenting itself as the physical world. Everything you look at, everything that you pick up, hold with your hands, be it an apple or an orange, or a chair or a table, or this phone that you're holding, whatever, walls, trees, mountains, they might seem real stuff, but the underlying activity is all mental. It's all made up of mind.